Okay, part 2 of the news roundup. A new variant of COVID-19, Eris, has been identified in South Africa. Here we go again. War was not quite as good at placating the masses as America thought it would be, was it? So, back to the tried and tested pandemic method. African Union Security Council votes against the use of force against rebels in Niger. I can only imagine how annoyed the Western democracy pushers are finding this, because their own flawed ideology is actually coming back to bite them in the bum. I am very grateful for the people who are standing up against this, but even despite that, we're still having stories like this where Nigerian army helicopters are flying over Nigerian territory and being attacked, and I believe 28 people have died. So things are definitely becoming tense, and it seems to be one man's war. The only man who wants this is the president of Nigeria. Everyone else seems to be very reluctant indeed to get involved. Moscow actively exploring alternatives to the Black Sea Grain Initiative in contacts with partners, and that's the Russian ambassador to Turkey. I just don't understand why you trust Turkey, honestly. I'd bypass and use Syria if it were me. The BRICS summit begins on the 22nd of August. Very, very much looking forward to some of the stories and the pictures and, of course, the information that will be shared here. I think that it will be one of those landmark moments that you just will always remember. Open discussions are important. Most countries are ready to defend sovereignty, Vladimir Putin has said in an address to the participants of the 11th Moscow Conference on International Security. And I should probably add here that there's been quite a lot of information that Africa is being offered defence systems, military systems support in order to defend themselves from Western influence, which marks a rather large change in the security framework of Africa, which, rather than being controlled by one side or the other, will actually be controlled by Africa. And that is positive. I actually think it's positive for everybody. I've said this before, but, you know, we in the West are so used to being ripped off by big corporations, we haven't seemed to notice that if Africans are able to produce their own work their own raw materials and produce their own goods, they are probably not going to rip us off nearly as much as multinationals are. So I welcome this. I just hope it can happen quickly, and more succinctly, I hope the West can wake up and become part of this rather than essentially removing ourselves from the running. Military relations between Russia and China are not directed against third countries. Again, whenever the Chinese speak, it breaks my heart a bit, because I listen to our politicians speak and they're all about war with China, attacking China, making China out to be these bad guys. It's crap. When China speaks, they talk about peace, they talk about security, and they talk about protecting themselves. And I really, really wish that we had politicians who were focused on that rather than this endless war waging. The facts of blatant corruption in the Biden family become the talk of the town, but under pressure from the White House, any investigation ends in nothing. I said this from the beginning, these impeachments and these trials and these, feigned courtrooms where they've all got their little microphones and they talk about stuff. They never amount to anything in America. It is all like a soap opera. It's like it's just put there for the crowd, and then nothing actually happens. So I think we're just going to witness more of that again. The Embassy of India in Russia joyfully celebrates the 76th anniversary of India's independence, and we have to remember, of course, and I'm sure most Indians will be reminded of what a crucial part Russia played in the independence of India. God bless them. The US intends to create a network of alliances under its control in the Asian Pacific region to contain Russia and China. Not going to work. The head of the main intelligence directorate of the Russian General Staff said, can I just say, head of the main intelligence directorate of the Russian General Staff, that's an awfully big badge, isn't it? Like, that's a huge name tag. They need to, like, I know that in Russian, like, why say it in one word when you can say it in seven, but really, some shorter name tags, guys, please. Anyway, I just wanted to do a quick poll. Like, how many Kinzhal missiles do you think it would take to take out that lot? What do you reckon? 3? I reckon 3, maybe 4. Anyway, this is pointless. You cannot even, they would need such an enormous force to go and try and contain China. There is literally no way. As soon as you are the attacking force, you are already at a disadvantage, and they're in miles and miles away from their own territory. America, please just stay in your own territory, and please, Australia, of all of the people involved here, Australia, please back off, because you are at such a risk here. As are Japan and South Korea. I mean, South Korea's witnessed a massive drop in living standards because of these sanctions. War against China, wow. I think if South Korea goes to war with America and China, North Korea will just come and take South Korea. I really do. Now, I think this might have been my favourite piece of news to come back to. I think this might have just blown any cobwebs away that I got from feeling glum yesterday. US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen's magic mushroom experience during China trip confirmed. There was a delicious mushroom dish. I was not aware that these mushrooms had hallucinogenic properties. I learned that later. I bet you did. Now, I may have had the odd magic mushroom omelette in Southeast Asia, and I can tell you right now, she will definitely have found that out later. The poorest countries are the main victims of Western-induced grain price crisis. Experts have said poor countries are the main victims of the crisis. These countries are not interested in the grain initiative. They got less than 3% of the Ukrainian grain that came out, but they remain the most in need of Russian grain and the most painful of the high prices of grain and fertilizer. And that is what the UN food programme should be focused on, North Korean Defence Minister has basically said that it's not a question of if there'll be a nuclear war in around the Asian Pacific. It's about who will start it, which is quite terrifying. I just want to say that if there is a world war and it's the very, very, very weakened West versus the constantly rebuilding, rejuvenating and forming good alliance East, I think I know who will win, and that is absolutely terrifying. We all need to maybe back off a bit here. All of Europe will soon see fallout from Ukrainian events. This is from the Serbian health minister, and as we know, the Serbians have very, very good understanding of the damage caused by depleted uranium being released into the air, and they don't see this as being over at all, which is hugely worrying. This guy's a neurosurgeon, and he said that there is going to be a massive uptick in cancers, etc., because of this depleted uranium that the West has sent to Ukraine. NATO has admitted that Ukraine could become a member of the alliance if it agrees to cede territories that it refuses to recognise as part of Russia. And it cedes Kiev, which is really, really interesting. And then I believe the West becomes part of Poland. I've talked about this. I've been told off so many times by Polish for saying that this is what they're planning, but it clearly is. This is them floating their get out clause, their surrender. Okay, well, let us keep this little bit. I hope that Russia doesn't allow that for many, many, many reasons, but this is very much music to the ears of the leaders in Poland. This is really interesting. There is a Chinese Chinese-Russian theatre collab kind of thing going on, like on a big scale, and I just see kind of like Chinese acrobats and Russian ballet combining and creating these incredible new dances and stuff. So really, really looking forward to seeing some of that. India have basically said that they didn't invite Ukraine to the G20 because this is something that should be dealt with at the UN Security Council. They are, of course, absolutely right. I think that's it for part 2. Do check in for part 3. Thank you and God bless.